correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, what's up? Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here tonight with Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
And we're going to talk some RPGs. But before we get into that...
Yes, before that...
Werewolves, the podcast.
Oh, Werewolf the Podcast. Yep, Werewolf the Podcast, another podcast here on the D20 Radio Network, hosted primarily by Josh Keith, who we've had on the show. He's a great person. It's a very good podcast. It focuses pretty much specifically on Werewolf the Apocalypse, whichever edition of Werewolf the game that is. Is that second edition, first edition? I don't know. It was the big one, the first one that went big. But they do a lot of talk about all sorts of the books and aspects of the game, and they have an actual play going. And it has been a little bit since Josh has released a new episode, but I know he is a man with many, many irons in the fire, and it is not something he has walked away from and abandoned. It's just that
too many irons in the fire have to be dealt with.
Yes.
One iron at a time.
But very, very good show. Very, very knowledgeable about the game and many, many aspects of it. So check that out. You can find it probably pretty much on all your podcatchers. Just search Werewolf the Podcast. Or, of course, we'll have a link to their main feed down in the show notes.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead? What's our topic for today?
Well, kind of going off a listener suggestion on our Discord here for this one, they wanted us to talk about generators and using them, be it like the various, lots of games have assorted random table generators. There's oracles, which I'm not real familiar with, but I think a lot of them come down to effectively random tables. And I thought that, we could kind of mix it all in a stew pot and talk about whatever's floating on the top as we see it, because that's what we do anyway.
Yeah. So let me start by saying I'm biased because I do love me some tables.
Fair.
I love me tables for doing a handful of things. First off, if they're tables to be used in the middle of a game to generate a random effect, I love it. I will sit there and just preemptively roll dice before they even need to use that table as a way to make my players sweat. Because there's nothing that makes you sweat more than the sound of your GM rolling dice. And we all know how much I don't do weekly prep, so being able to roll on a table and just read out the result and then modify that to whatever I need, forget it. That is killer. That is killer for me, because that takes all of my brain power and makes it go, all right, I don't need about 50% of this.
Fair.
Go ahead.
I would say I like them, although I tend to be hesitant to follow them blindly.
No, I'm never going to follow a table blindly. What I'll say about that is I will read them first.
Mm-hmm.
I always take mental stock of the tables in a book and the importance of them to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if a book, and this is the truth, if a book's layout is in such a way where the tables are strewn throughout the book, and then at the end of the book in the index, or towards the end where the indices would be, I like a nice compendium of all the tables that exist in that book.
Okay.
With just a little header and then the table, and then a little header and then the table. Give me that, and I am like a pig in slop. I am so happy with that, because me sitting trying to remember that table's on page 45 and I'm on page 38, I'm not going to sit there and tab through page after page after page. Throw them all at the back of the book, and I am happy.
Fair. As far as that goes, if they're thematically grouped, I like that.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining when I do find them in the book, I'm just saying that my favorite part, my favorite books that have a layout with tables like that have the tables compiled in the back.
Fair, fair. I mean, I think, well, when I say follow them blindly, so no, what I was saying, I don't want to follow them blindly. I guess I'm a little gun shy of them throwing the loose plans I have completely off kilter.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Fair.
I'm not trying to immediately contradict you, but no, that's my favorite part. That's my favorite part of random tables is, okay, it's the best laid plans of mice and men. It's, you have a goal and you're like, we're going to get here and we're going to go this way. And then you hit a random table and it's like, what happens if I roll on this? Blah. Oh, we're not going there and we're not doing that. We're dealing with this. That's why I dealt, like, not to devolve too far right now, but that's why I love like the deck of many things and just handing it to my players and going, cause havoc.
I think, yeah, and look, I think this is different because hearing what I said, it probably sounds like I don't like random tables, and in fact,
No,
I actually do.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
But what I like them more for is as prep assistants,
Mhm.
or where I love random character generation tables to a point. Here's what usually happens for me, and I'll point to Cyberpunk Red or Cyberpunk 2020. We both, we're familiar with the life path and the generation there as far as the random rolls for style or attitude. Well, what I'll do a lot of times with that is I'll be making, say, a pre-gen or a character, and I may have an idea, I may not. A lot of times I'll roll on the first few tables and suddenly I get this thing and then this thing and that. Okay, now I know where I'm going, and then I'm off the tables. But a lot of times, or I'll go, I don't know, how do I want, let's see what this table says because I can incorporate that into my thing. I think a lot of like the way you use tables is very popular in the OSR scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of why okay, the reason I use tables that way comes back to where I cut my teeth at. I played tons of advanced Dungeons and Dragons. 90% of OSR is advanced Dungeons and Dragons with a different skin slapped on it.
Fair.
I know that's an inflammatory statement. Don't come at me. I understand how wrong I am, please. But
Well, it
the
is
point of old
right?
school revival is that, in my opinion, the point of the old school revival is to bring back the old school style of playing, which was what we saw in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry. It just is.
Yeah. Now there's games that point at other games for inspiration, but I don't think, at least in spirit, you're not, far off base.
No. And I don't mean it as a dig at anything. It's just an observation I've had reading many of those games. I know our Discord sort of got into this discussion the other day that a lot of people in the Discord haven't touched any of the OSR games. I pick them up, I read them. I not saying I put them on a table, but I pick a lot of them up and read them. I like the popular ones.
Well, but I mean, you have stuff like Morkborg is very kind of OSR, Cyborg.
Yeah, Morkborg and Cyborg are OSR. They're both. I mean, Morkborg at the end of the day is pretty much a stripped down version of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Cyborg is basically that too. I don't know how else to put it. There's a bunch of the others. The what is it? Dungeon Crawl Classics. I've read those. They're cool. I have no interest in playing dungeon crawls, but that's cool. If you like that kind of thing, that's you. There's a lot of those that are really I don't know how to put it. A lot of the old school revival games are good, but they are sort of the same game just with a different skin slapped on it.
I don't think you're as far off base as a lot of people want to scream that you are.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to say that to be like, and I'm not saying that to be rude, and it's not that any of those games are bad. If you like playing them, then it's not a bad game. I don't like I don't like I don't like the system attached to Shadowrun. Shadowrun.
buckets of D6s.
Yeah, that's not my go-to. But that all being said, if you love it and you love rolling buckets of D6 and doing that math, good on you. If you're a huge Warhammer Fantasy player and you love the math and everything that comes along with that, then that's great. I'm glad you like your game that you play.
Mhm.
But it's not for me. At the same time, I read these OSR games because I feel like they would be for me, and then I read a bunch of them and I'm like, I'm not ever going to put this on a table. And
Yeah.
it's not a slight against that game. It's just a that's not what I want to play right now, but that's cool. It's cool it
Mhm.
exists.
Well, yeah, and so like one of the things kind of, I don't know, sort of head back to where we were at. Let me find my cursor. Where cursor?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm
The train left the station and we were both not on it.
trying to find my cursor. Our listener actually brought up specifically Kevin Crawford's Stars Without Number.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, that's a game with some tables.
Oh, and now I have not yet bought the full PDF. I did, however, pick up the Stars Without Number revised free edition, which, as I understand it, has not as many of the goodies and a lot less artwork. And there's a bunch of stuff in this that is really cool generators for all kinds of things, from encounters to, patrons to NPCs of assorted types. And the way Crawford has built these tables, I kind of like this because so many of them that, and again, me coming from Palladium background, lots of tables in Palladium games, almost all D100 tables. Nothing wrong with them. I have a book somewhere of assorted random D30 tables. Why? Because I was looking for an excuse to buy a D30? I don't know. But what I like about Crawford's tables is, like, I'm looking at the one it's called One Roll Patrons. So to roll on this table, you pick up a D4, a D6, a D8, a D10, a D12, and a D20. And you roll them, and each die gives you a different result for a different thing. Like, for example, the D6, and like I said, I'm not trying to, whatever, but I'm literally reading off the free version of the PDF. Anyone can go to drive through and get it. The D6 is patron trustworthiness. Everything from they intend to totally screw over your PCs to they'll pay out even more than they originally promised. D12 is potential non-cash rewards, which could be, all sorts of stuff. And like I said, I'm just looking at the one page in Stars Without Number.
Right.
Now, to me, a table like this, can you use this on the fly at the table? Absolutely. I think this is great for, okay, I need the PCs to get hired to do something. Who's hiring them?
Yeah, exactly. And there's your guy.
It's quick, easy prep. And again, like I said, what I'll do a lot of the times is I might roll the handful of dice for this and just go through the first couple entries of the table and then start going, oh wait, okay, now this thing on the table seems fun with this other two things that I already rolled, and go, or I may just kind of go, okay, I've got this, now I go off down a road. So I tend to use them a lot as partials and seeds, I guess is the best way to, which I think is a great way to use them. Okay. I'm not trying to say it's the best way. I'm not trying to say it's the only way. It's just my way.
I'll say this. I love, okay, so Stars Without Number is great because, and I'll get into that in a minute, but something like Cyberpunk, right? The original Cyberpunk 2020, which you've talked about a little bit already, has a lot of random tables that are very well flushed out random tables, meaning that the result you roll on the table has a very well defined, clear explanation of what the result means and how to implicate that in the game. That's fine. And that's great for especially people that aren't familiar with the setting or aren't familiar with how to play that type of game or are looking to get everything as close to what the book wants as possible. That's fantastic. I don't hardly ever follow the exact instructions of that stuff. And the reason I say that is not because the book's written badly, or not because I don't like the book, or not because any of that. I have an overactive imagination. That's why I'm in this hobby. That's why I really like this hobby. My overactive imagination lets me take a prompt, like you said, a seed, and turn that into something else. So yeah, how nice it is to be able to go, okay, I can turn my brain off and don't have to think about this thing at all. I can simultaneously use that as a prompt if my players or the situation at hand is not presenting me in a way that I can leverage it to a comfortable position, right? Stars Without Number does that exceedingly well, where some of the table are seeds tables and some of the tables are fully flushed out, and you can use them both interchangeably. And I don't mean interchangeably in that there's same tables listed multiple times. I mean that, like, Stars Without Numbers in a weird position as far as the game is concerned. That game is a fantastic game and an amazing resource.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That game is a fantastic game on its own, and simultaneously, much like GURPS Horror, is an amazing resource for how to run that type of game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and look, I've not read the system segment of it.
Oh, okay.
I will say just what I've, and it's a shame because I've been sitting on this version of the PDF for a long time. But just looking at these tables, I mean, it's so useful.
I think there hasn't been many games deserving of the praise like Stars Without Number.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Without Number deserves every bit of praise it gets, whether you're a fan of sci-fi games or not. And the fact of the matter is that if you're not a fan of sci-fi games, you still need to take note of that, because stuff like Cities Without Number exists.
Mm-hmm. And Worlds Without Number, which are
Worlds Without Number, which
cyberpunk and fantasy versions from the same author.
Yeah. And Worlds Without Number existing as a fantasy option is a phenomenal resource. It just hands down absolutely stunning. And it's a great game. I don't know anybody that's actually played Stars Without Number, and I'm going to be completely honest, and I don't know that that's a downfall of that game. I think it is just the fact of the matter is that it's such a great resource in and of itself. It doesn't have to have, like, it could have been a game it could have been a resource book in and of itself without a game attached to it.
Right.
And I think everybody would still be singing the praises of that. However, the fact that it has a game attached to it is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I love that game exists. I love that is a thing that's out there in the world. I had a conversation with somebody one time. I was, at the game store, actually. I was talking to a guy who, he wasn't wanting to join our game, but he was having some struggles and he wanted to talk to an experienced GM. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll sit down and talk to you. We'll bullshit for a while and figure out what we need to do here. And he was like, I don't know where to take my players. I don't know what to use for prompts. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And he was trying to run something that was roughly fantasy or roughly space-based, right? Like, he wanted to do something in Spelljammer. And I set him to Stars Without Number. I'm like, there's a game that exists. You don't have to acknowledge the game, but you can acknowledge everything else about it. And I said, there's a free version. You can pick it up. You don't have to pay anything for it. But go pick up Stars Without Number, because it has these tables, and I think that'll help you get your ideas flowing. And a couple days later, I'm, working at the shop, talking to people. He comes back in. He goes, dude, that was exactly what I needed to get my game where I needed it to be. I'm like, I had a hunch that's what you needed, was just some prompts on a world building type thing, stuff that's not in 5th edition D&D.
Mm-hmm.
I love that system in ways. It's got its faults. I'm not dogging on 5th edition because I'm just not. I play that game. I can't dog on it anymore like I used to. You can't talk too much smack when you play the game. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But 5th edition is lacking in tables in a lot of ways. If they just put out a 5th edition's book of tables, I would be like, okay, this is what we needed.
I wonder if the current where, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, where the second edition, yes, there was a lot of pre-made adventures, so on and so forth. But a lot of it was, here's some stuff, go make your own fun.
Yeah, it was build your own adventure.
And I wonder if there's been a conscious shift specifically from Wizards, Hasbro as a directive to produce more stuff in a here's an adventure vein as opposed to here's tools. And I ask that because part of me is looking at it, thinking at it from the perspective of a publisher. And one thing I remember hearing about when one of the problems that TSR ran into is they had so much stuff spread over lots of little mini settings.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were publishing a lot of things and only selling a few copies of them,
Right.
each of them.
Yeah,
and the focus has shifted to let's put out fewer books that we can sell more of. And in that regard, if you put out a book of tools, you sell one copy. If you put out a book of adventures that has a couple tools in it, you sell the next book with adventures and a couple more tools in it.
While that's true, there is also inversely, they do put out their tools books, right? They have a new one on its way now. And yeah, it's like 4-to-1. For every 4 setting books that have a handful of tools, we get a dedicated tools book.
Mm-hmm.
And then very seldomly you get things like Eberron, Rising from the Last War, which is a fantastic book that is more tools and setting guide than it is actually a campaign to run.
Fair.
I think what you get more of is, like you're saying, campaigns to run, here's the pre-writtens, just run them, play it, do whatever. Mm-hmm. But we do get things like Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron, and we're getting another one coming out here soon called The Book of Many Things. I want to say it's basically like an expanded Deck of Many Things type book. It's all going to be tables.
Fair.
And we do get those, but it is very much 4-to-1. You get 4 campaign books to 1 lore book to 1, like half of something like Xanathar's Raven or
Xanathar's Guide,
or not Xanathar's, but half of, like, you get like what was the D&D one called?
What do you mean?
Oh, the D&D setting book, or Eberron, or things like that, where it's just a setting instead of an actual campaign. Ravenlaw.
What? I'm confused with what you're.
Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica.
Oh, okay.
Because GMG is basically like how Eberron is, where it's a setting and rules.
That's true. You had, what was the Theros one?
Yep.
Fair.
I think your point is valid. However, they do things to mitigate people from making that point too many times. I think they get annoyed with the question of, so you just not going to print rules and we're just going to keep putting out settings books, or what?
Yeah, hey, it is what it is, right? But I think, and look, from a business perspective, I get it, right? But I like having those seeds, those kernels to do my own thing off of. And that's just the way I like to do things, because I like to take what someone else did and fiddle with it.
I agree. I'm the same way.
I don't know. I mean, like, at the same point, and this is, again, if you have random creature generators or tables, I think I prefer to use them as inspiration as opposed to just pick it up and set it down. But I'm not going to tell anyone. I think they're valuable tools to be able to have, and I guess one of the nice things with like a random creature generator, if it's literally generating a new creature or a new combination, let's put it that way. We all have known those people who, to speak in D&D terms, know the monster manual.
Oh, they pour over that book. Yeah, we both played with a guy that was like that knew every creature, and it's like it's almost not fun at that point. Like you took the mystery out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's something which remind me I have to talk to you once we're done recording about. But anyway, yeah, I feel like if it's literally giving you stuff that can throw a player like that off the trail,
Mm-hmm.
or just keep your group guessing a little bit, I think that's cool.
Yeah, to combat those players, and I'll just derail this for a half a second. To combat those players, I describe my creatures completely differently than how the book describes them.
Yeah.
Hey, just because I'm using the stat block from an owlbear doesn't mean that the owlbear needs to look like an owlbear.
Yeah.
I've taken that. I stole that from Genesis. It's like everything. I listened to enough of. I'm just going to call him out on this. I've listened to enough of Chris and Hooley's podcast to know that everything is just reskinned to something else.
Yes, and you know the sad part is it's really the truth.
Yeah.
But you can get a lot out of it that way too. Like you said, reskin it, swap out one thing for a different thing, and you don't have to worry if you're worried about balance. If you don't play with too many things at once, and you'll be fine.
I don't know why you'd be worried about it. Depending on the game. Yeah, depending on the game, you worry about balance. When it comes to D&D, unless you're throwing 14 beholders at the party, you're not worried about balance. You're not. I've been doing my damnedest to kill my 10th level party. They're still alive. They keep finding ways to thwart my plans. Like, I don't need to worry about balance. They fought an entire freaking dragon and bodied him.
I mean, yeah, it's. But I think that's, to me, that's where those things now, specifically oracles, I don't have any experience with.
No clue. I know when we talked to way back when we talked about solo RPGs.
Solo John, yeah.
Yeah, they talked about oracles, and I still have yet to interact with any of that stuff.
Yeah, likewise. I think this kind of leaves an elephant in the room, though, and another thing that I have not messed with is these AI stuff, like the Chat GTP, and
I have taken the side. I've taken the side of the some people in our Discord, and I understand that. Hey, it's cool. It's a tool. Whatever. I don't touch it. I would much rather have something made by somebody that's a real person.
And go ahead.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about on why. So I have and you know this, I have a bit of a tech background.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand how Chat GPT has worked for a long time is it's been gathering information from users of various other things. So it's gathered information from here, from there, from Google data, from metadata, all this information it's gathered. And it's also gathered information from products that exist, products that don't exist, books, other people's writing. And so I am very, very off-put by using that stuff because it is stealing somebody else's writing style to do something that it's claiming to be its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not faulting. I'm not going to say you're a bad person. If you want to make that, if you make that ethical decision and you choose to use it, that is on you. I'm not going to say you're a bad person for doing that. I personally choose not to use it because I would much rather support creators that I know personally or that I know are real people and can reach out to and go, hey, I really appreciate what you did here, right? Like, if I went to Chat GPT and was like, write me a Harlem Unbound-esque story, it would steal Chris Pivey's writing style and write me a Harlem Unbound-esque story. Whereas if I go to Chris Spivey and go, I need a prompt for my Harlem Unbound game, he'll give me one. You know what I mean? And I can get it from the horse's mouth versus, and I know that's an incredibly privileged position I'm in, right? We have
Yeah,
access to some people that we really shouldn't have access to for as little as we are. I just being honest, right? But the fact of the matter is that I'm gonna support a human over a robot any day of the week. And yeah, there's cool stuff there, but it's not. It's not. Doesn't have the human touch,
yeah.
and that creeps me out. And then also the like AI art generation stuff. AI art's stolen art because it takes somebody else's art style and makes an image in its approximation of their art style.
I don't think any points you raised are incorrect. I have not messed with any of them, partially because where you have a tech background, most of our listeners have heard me talk about it a little bit, and if you're on our Discord, you've probably heard some more of it. I have very weird interactions with technological things.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that.
I get unusual problems with technological things, even with mechanical things, but technological things more so. And I'm hesitant to put my faith, if you will, into machine generated processes. I think AI art, on some level, as long as they're being upfront about it, has a place in this industry in the this context. Um, let's say you or I want to put out an adventure book of something. We want a cover piece that is at least not stock art. Now, to be able to, I honestly don't know what the rates of an artist for cover work would be, but I know they're not, they're outside of my budget if I was going to produce something at this point myself. As much as I would like to pay an artist to make me something, I can't right now. I would probably, were I to be putting out something, would maybe use some sort of AI generated image as a cover, then try and use, bought stock art, whatever, internally. Um, that being said, as a goal, I might eventually, if the product were to move enough that, okay, then I would then go hire an artist to make me a cover and replace it in the the digital edition that's up for sale. I think that's using it as a tool in that regard. I don't think is bad as long as you're upfront about it. Where I think I
See,
have the least problem with using it is, let's say you're playing on a digital tabletop and you want to make tokens for whatever it is your monsters
that's
NPCs.
I look at that. Well, yes, but also no. I agree with you there, but I at the same time I could go to Google and Google Images, and if I'm just gonna steal art, I'm gonna steal somebody else's. You know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to playing virtual tabletop stuff. Yeah, if you want to go and get a highly specific image generated, sure, that's fine. I think. Well, I don't know that it's fine, but it's acceptable use of AI generation. My thing is, as far as like your cover for like a book, like if we were to want to publish a book and I needed a cover and I couldn't afford to pay an artist, I would try and not necessarily befriend, but reach out to people and be like, look, this is the situation. I can't afford to pay you. I'm looking for cover work. If you know somebody that needs publicity, that's a decent artist, somebody that needs help coming up, sometimes that can help. Like, sometimes partnering with somebody who's just as small and just as broke as you are is a great way for both of you to excel as a creator.
Yeah, I get that too. And like I said, it's something, quite frankly, I don't know that, as much as I've had ideas in the past, it's not a spot that I think at this stage I don't anticipate myself being in, at least not anytime soon. And
Right.
so it's easy for me to go, well, I think this and I think that, when, let's face it, I'm probably not going to have to make that choice.
No. Well, I mean, I might at some point, but yeah, no, I feel that I'm not ever gonna. I might have to make that choice at some point, but I'm not ever going to choose the AI over a person.
Oh, they no, if not, if yeah, if I could reasonably make real person produce things Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I'm with you there. I don't know. Part of me, maybe this is just the cynic in me, but like I don't want to use Alexa. Like I don't have any Alexa crap in my house because I just don't want it.
I
Like I feel like and tell
have a
me.
weird position when it comes to that because I interact with well, there's a lot of cursing that goes on when I interact with her. But I'm not a fan of those. I'm not a fan of those. But every once in a while I use like my Siri on my phone to like set an alarm or something, which usually comes with Siri set an alarm and then she goes, "For what time?" And I tell her, and then she goes, "For what time?" And I'm like, "You stupid son of a." But yeah, I feel that. You don't want to interact with that stuff. However, the weird thing with, and I've used ChatGPT and art generation stuff just to play with it before I had an opinion on it, really.
Mhm.
And the weird thing with that is it's so smooth. It's so weirdly easy to use. Like ChatGPT, as far as creating prompts and stuff, it is. There are some things that you can really trip it up with, but it is so smooth.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I've not messed with it, so I can't offer any sort of educated opinion on it as far as what it actually does. I can tell you I routinely get disturbed by the things that autofill into search bars on my phone. Like, I've been thinking about this thing. I don't think I've even said anything aloud, but I go to, open a search bar on my phone and it fills out something way too adjacent to the things that have been rattling around my head. And that, I won't say it scares me, but it's kind of disturbing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all based off of, and that's just how much information that you put into the, sorry, that's just how much information you share while just conversating in a normal daily basis, right?
Yeah,
Like that's all predictive. So
it is.
it's predicting that you're gonna want to search up something. Like we were just talking about guitars. I said to you about the one Rickenbacker bass that I really like. Google knows I've Googled that Rickenbacker bass like 15 times. So it's going to, as soon as I start typing in bass, it's going to bring that up and know that I've searched that. That's just what we feel. This comes back to a whole efficacy in technology and internet and data privacy and all that fun stuff that every couple of years comes around. That's an interesting conversation that comes up every time, but this is a tabletop RPG podcast and not a podcast about that type of stuff. I'm sorry. I could get into deep intellectual thoughts about it. But the fact of the matter is that this isn't the podcast for that.
No, and I guess like look, right? As far as if that's your jam to use for your games, then good for you. I'm not
You
going
want
to
to do
tell
that?
someone.
That is perfectly fine. You want to use that stuff, you feel comfortable with that, your table's comfortable with that, hey, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a tool.
It's not a tool I'm putting in my arsenal, if I'm completely honest. That's just
and
my opinion.
I think I'm in a similar place there, but I'm not going to look down on someone because they do.
No, I'm not. If you look, we're all adults here, unless you're not, in which case it's not life or death
You will be,
decisions going on.
probably.
Yeah, you will be at some point. If you make the decision to use that, you're cool with it, your table's cool with it. I can't tell you not to do that. I can't. I'm not there. I'm not at your table. Whatever. If I sat down at a con game and I played a con game that was run based off a Chat GPT thing and I didn't know it, I'm not going to be like, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, that's weird. All right, cool. But I know for me personally, I feel a little sketched out using it as a tool. Okay, fine. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong. I could have a wrong opinion. That's okay. I just fall on the side again, and I don't mean to harp on this, and I don't mean to harp on anybody that wants to use those tools. I fall on the side of creators because I am, at the end of the day, or would like to be a creator. That's just why I fall on that side of the argument.
No, and I'm I mean, it's no secret to I like to make things
Right.
of assorted whatever, and there's something. Sometimes I could go and buy a thing, or
Or
I
I
could
could
make
build
me
it
the
myself.
thing,
Exactly.
and I might spend several hours making the thing that I could have driven to a store and bought and brought home. And there are probably cases where the thing I could have driven to the store and bought would be objectively superior to the thing that I made. But for me, sometimes maybe I learned something in the process of making whatever thing that was, and to me that's valuable. Or look, it's just the thing and it does exactly what I need it to do, and only that, and I just had fun making it.
Well, sometimes it's fun to make tools.
Mhm.
I don't know. And sometimes it's fun to sometimes you just need to use a tool. Like the other day, okay, perfect example of this, and you'll appreciate this. We were doing brakes on her car. I didn't know, apparently, on her car, the rear calipers wind in. That's.
It was I thought most manufacturers had gone away from that design, but yes.
They did. Me and Dad tend to think that it's because it has the emergency brake tied to the rear brakes, and so it's some sort of emergency brake thing. So it doesn't. So the caliper clamps
Right.
better.
Well, in the designs, welcome to the Me and Steve Automotive Hour. In the designs I have seen that don't use that, and this is usually in the rear, if a vehicle has rear disc brakes,
Right. Yeah.
usually there's either a mini drum inside the rotor that is
Right.
exclusively your parking brake, or it has that screw in crap.
Yeah. So it doesn't have a mini drum that's inside the caliper. It just has a standard rear hub, and it's just a standard, or not inside the caliper, inside the rotor. It's just a standard rotor with the wind-in rear brakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think that's actually really smart. On Honda's end, it makes sense. Less parts that you have to piss with, right?
Fair enough.
But so we sat around, and I was like, well, we got to go pick up parts from the parts store anyways. I'm going to get that tool because there's the little brick.
It's a little cube.
It's got 4 sides to it, or, whatever many sides, 6 sides to it. And each side does a different thing, or for a different manufacturer of car. I could have sat there in the garage and welded together 2 pieces of, 2 nails onto a socket that would have fit, and it would have done the same thing. Or I'm going to the store anyways. I'm just going to pick up the part, right? I'm just going to get the tool.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need. You just don't want to have to mess with the making it yourself. And you're just like, I'm just going to get the tool that I need and be done with it.
Right.
And I think that's the case is when you're in a bind and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll go to ChatGPT. Maybe I won't. I think the thing of it is that, it's just one of those, sometimes that's the tool you need. Sometimes it's not.
Sometimes you need a wrench. Sometimes you need a hammer.
Sometimes you need
every
both.
now and then you use a wrench for a hammer.
And every now and again you use a hammer for a wrench.
Yeah, it's a little harder, but I've done it.
I have too. I had a conversation with a friend of mine today that he's having some house issues, and he's like, I need a pipe wrench. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed what I use as a pipe wrench, which is channel locks.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 big sets of channel locks. So I brought them to him. He's like, that's not what I meant. I'm like, listen, I've used these things enough that if you can't get it with those, you're not getting it with a monkey wrench, like with an actual pipe wrench. He's like, oh, okay. The tighter you grip, the stronger it is. He's like, oh
my.
It exposes a lot of how I work on things. My dad used to use vice grips as an actual vice.
I've done that.
He had found a set. Oh man, he found these vice grips that have a little hole in the end of the nut, so you can run a screwdriver through it and really crank it down.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know where he found them at, but if you ever come across, if I can find them.
Oh, I know what you mean. I've just never seen. Granted, you could just take a regular pair of pliers and crank on that thing, that knurled knob pretty good.
Yeah,
Problem is usually they start deflecting when you start cranking on them too hard.
that's it exactly. They're Milwaukee's.
Okay.
They're Milwaukee's. They're called Torque Lock. Here, I'll send you the link on Home Depot's website. Because we've pretty much replaced all of our vice grips. Again, back to the Steve and Steve Motor Hour. Anyways, sorry.
No. It's all good.
It's my podcast. I'll talk about what I want to.
Yeah, well, but I mean, no, I think it's an issue of what tools, what tools are you comfortable using how? And
sometimes you only know how to use the wrong tool. So you homebrew 5th edition into everything. I mean, sorry.
No, but it in the end, I think all these generators, they're tools.
Yeah.
And I think they can serve to really drive you creatively if you want to use them that way, or you can just use them to spit out something to use. And I think that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, do you. I mean, that's my thing is you do what you and your table are cool with. If you're playing solo RPGs, it's just you. You just have to make the decision on what you're cool with. So, well, how long have we been
almost
going
an hour
at this? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move into Game of the Week then.
Yeah, all right. Game of the Week. Woohoo!
Game of the Week. Game of the Week.
So, as much as I dog on 5th edition conversions, I have one.
Uh-oh.
But it's actually kind of a cool 5th edition conversion. It's either 5th edition or Everyday Heroes. And it is The Crow Cinematic Adventure by Evil Genius Games, authored by Chris Goober Ramsley and Rick Hines. Are you familiar with The Crow?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yes. Send me the link to that if you would, please.
Sure.
Yeah, I had one of the roommates I had freshman year of college was obsessed with the movie.
I'm not obsessed with it. I just really like it.
Actually, I own the score to The Crow on CD.
That's a fantastic score.
By the way, you want to know what actually will get you an eyebrow raised to you at the music store? Now, this was back in the 90s, but I bought, on the same trip, I bought the Misfits Crimson Ghost album, the soundtrack, or maybe it was the soundtrack to The Crow, that Tupac double album that was real big.
Okay, yeah.
And the score to Hunt for Red October, all in the same trip.
I can imagine how somebody at a music shop would be confused by that, but at the same time, I would buy those 3 things if I found them at a music shop. I would be like, that sounds like some of the times that I've gone into stores and bought things. Like, I picked up, so I've been getting back into vinyl, and I picked up Black Sabbath's Paranoid. I picked up Eddie Murphy's Raw vinyl, and I picked up one of the Van Hagar albums. I don't remember which one. They all sound the same, but I love Van Hagar.
You won't hear me complain.
So I picked those 3 up, and the guy's standing there looking at me, and he's looking at my albums. Plus, I think I got like a Jonas Brother album for her, and I got like a Justin Bieber album for her, right? So he's looking at this spread, and he's looking at me. He goes, what is your musical taste? And I looked at him and went, yes. But anyway, so The Crow, back to tabletop RPGs, because we have been bad today. The Crow by Evil Genius Games. Again, it's The Crow. Some tragedies never rest even after death. Every culture in the world has its myth about our souls traveling to the land of the dead and warnings about their return. I don't know, what I'm trying to see is visit the world of The Crow and wreak vengeance on those who would turn the lands and the living dead on their head. A global wave of violent crime subtly lights cities ablaze around the world in a revival of the forgotten tradition of the Devil's Night. Caught in the crossfire, you can't rest until revenge is had, or rather, you aren't allowed to rest until the wrongs committed have been set right. it sounds like you and your group play the Crow, and I'm pretty down for that.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I've played with a lot of tables that would have a lot of fun with a well set up premise like that.
Yeah, I think the only conceit you have to make is either you all play people that are the Crow, right? That are revived revenants,
Mm-hmm.
or you have one guy who is the Crow, probably the GM, and then a handful of supporting characters.
Or you turn it on its head
And you play the
and
bad guys?
and the PCs are the bad guys.
Yeah, you could do that too. That would be really fun.
I think there'd have to be some pre-session talk
there's
about, but
there's some safety rules in play there. There is.
absolutely. And I think this is a game that's needs that anyway. Just look, the Crow was not a kind premise.
No, it's not. I love that movie. I'm sorry. I love how sleazy and grimy that movie is. I watched it, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point. I
Okay,
not
this
obsessed with it, but I just love that movie.
This is for the Everyday Heroes game, which is
Yes.
D&D based.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could run it in Everyday Heroes. You could run it in 5e technically.
Well, I think Everyday Heroes is the quote unquote 5e version of D20 Modern.
Yeah.
Okay. No, look, I haven't watched it in quite a while. I've seen it a lot of times. No, it's a valid thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a valid move, a valid game, and I'm very excited. I want to get my hands on that. And I was thinking about it, just reading over that. I was like, I know a handful of people that don't even play tabletop RPGs that would be down to play that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with it being, we're coming up into October, you got to be thinking about the spooky games.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of those spooky games that you could play in October and have a really good time with.
Absolutely.
And that's mine. What do you got, Steve?
Well, I am going to go kind of thematically with the conversation that we had tonight with this kind of little OSR game that'll set you back all of about $5. It's called Maze Rats. It's from the same guy who wrote Knave, amongst other things.
Yeah, that'll be good.
It is self-described as an RPG and sandbox toolkit for old school style adventuring. Single compact page of rules, 1-page character creation guide, character sheet, 8 pages of 36 item random tables. Says each page contains 9 to 12 tables covering spells, monsters, NPCs, treasure cities, wilderness dungeon, etc., and so on. Game itself is 2d6 based, quick character gen, great for, it says convention games, one shots, etc. And it's 13 pages, so $5 for 13 pages, maybe a little steep, but hey, it is what it is. Still not breaking the bank by any stretch. And like I said before, for me, these tables are seed fields. So, I mean, if each page contains 9 to 12 tables and there's 8 pages of tables, that's 80 to 100 tables. 80
Yeah,
to
that sounds about
95.
right.
I'm not doing full on math in my head, but somewhere in that range, 80 plus.
The numbers are there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's a lot of things that can make you go, ooh, and the yes and, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's a game called Maze Rats from Questing Beast Games, written by Ben Milton.
Awesome. Well, with that all being said, we want to remind everyone, as always, links to everything are in the show notes. We're going to be at PGX literally next week. So as you're hearing this, Saturday and Sunday, we will be at PGX. Come see us, please.
Mm-hmm.
We have a panel. I'm running Hell Knight. You're running Havoc Brigade.
Yep.
Then, the Patreon's down there. The Discord's down there. Please join us on Patreon. Please check us out on Discord. If at the very least, the most you could do is follow us on Facebook, that's great. And if you use Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. 5 stars would be preferred. 1 star, just send us an email. The email's down in the link. They're down in the Discord or the doobly-doo. You can just send us an email and tell us why we're so terrible at what we do that we deserve a 1 star. But yeah, please,
Or just tell your friends about us.
yeah, if you do give us good ratings on Apple, they promote us to people that are interested in things. So if you want to see the podcast grow, one of the best ways to help us grow is to give us reviews on Apple. And with Apple Podcasts being some of the most podcasts, I'm looking at our metrics, the majority of you listen to us on Apple Podcasts. If all of you could take 5 minutes out of your day, 2 minutes out of your day, and give us a quick little review, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, we would appreciate it.
But as always, we want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast, on Discord at Me and Steve RPGs, and as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.
Can you hold that thought for 2 seconds? I gotta
Sure.
take care of him. I gotta take care of the dog real quick. Just
Alrighty.
hold that thought.
La da da da. La da da da. This week's episode of Me and Steve Talk RPGs is brought to you by Steve's dog needing to leave the room, or is interrupted by, I don't know, something like that. In any case, we will be back shortly.
Sorry about that.
That's all good.
All right.